then that's bad for search. And this goes into internal linking. Link your pages. If you want your pages to be discovered, link to them. Metadata matters. This might be a shocker, but we don't rewrite titles as often as you might think. We typically use the page titles from the page itself, unless it's really like basically batshit stupid. So do write titles and make sure the title is relevant to the page's content. Same applies for meta description. And I swear that there is no character limit for the meta description. I know that it's a hot topic always on Twitter for some reason, that how many characters can you put in a meta description? We really don't care. Like honestly, we don't care. Right? There's something that describes what the page is about, and that's it. Don't worry about the number of characters. We are going to pick just enough that the user will be able to tell what the page is actually about. And another thing that people tend to forget is that the second most popular, I think, search engine that we have on Google.com is image search. And people are neglecting image search, even though, even for head keywords, there are lots to win there exactly because people forget about image search. Annotate your images. Make sure that you have an alt attribute set and that the alt attribute describes the image. Not what you want to rank for with that image, but what is in the image. We do some image recognition, image intelligence as well. I would not yet rely on that we will be able to understand what's in the image. But, well, eventually I guess we will get there, but not yet. For example, for the first picture, we would be able to tell that it's a picture of a brain and two really weird dudes. Oh wait, that's me. Oh, well, no, really weird dudes. But we wouldn't be able to tell with image intelligence that one of them is Eric, the other one is Gary. Add captions. The text around the image, and especially below the image, matters a lot to understanding what is in the image. Make sure you make use of that. Lazy load with no script. Lazy loading is a brilliant technique to speed up image-heavy pages. It's really good. But typically lazy loading is triggered by scrolling events, JavaScript scroll events. The problem is that no search engine I know of scrolls, which means that if you lazy load your images, search engines will only see the 1 pixel image that is the placeholder for the actual image that is going to be loaded later. Googlebot renders about 1,000 pixel high, or renders on a 10,000 pixel high canvas, but it still doesn't scroll. What you can do is to put your image tags in a no script tag. That will not change anything for the user, but it will enable search engines to actually see your images. You are shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head? That's Barry, by the way. Okay, you will ask me this later. And then content. Write clearly. People ask us a lot, like how to write for voice search and or how to make better content. Just write clearly. Read out loud what you've written and make sure that it doesn't sound mechanical I guess. It sounds natural to your ears. Use ads reasonably. Is there anyone from the AdSense team here? No? Okay. So if the AdSense team tells you to load like 20 ads on your page, don't fall for it. I don't think that 20 is a reasonable number or whatever they say. I would rather like maybe put half of those ads, because ads not only slow down the page typically, they can also get in the way of content, and they can just become really annoying if you overdo them. Do you really need that interstitial? I know that, for example, when I go to, okay, I will not call out the site, but I go to the site, and within seconds, I get this massive pop-up to sign up to their newsletter. Like, I don't even yet know what the site is about. Like, why would I sign up? And especially in mobile search, if we can detect those interstitials, you are going to rank lower. But we do have guidelines, some guidelines on how to actually create these pop-ups. So, play Need for Speed. Speed is super important, and we know for certain that most sites will convert better, whatever conversion means to you, will convert better if they are faster. Now, I know that this does not apply on every single site. Maybe there are some corner cases where slow site will convert better. I don't know. But for the vast majority, it's a fast site that converts better. Find a testing tool that you like, put your developer there, and ask them to complete as many of the checks as possible, and then implement them on the server side. I said, find a testing tool that you like. Unfortunately, for some reason, Google has probably 42 of them. I have no idea why, but pretty much all of them will give you results that you can work with. Personally, I recommend the Lighthouse tool, link from there, or link is there, mainly because, well, I don't know, just the icon just looks pretty. Okay, Eric says that it has the most detail, so yeah. Don't look for a single metric. If you start comparing the different tools, then you are going to run into weird situations when one tool tells you A and then the other tool tells you B. Pick one, and that's it. Basically, if the site will start loading faster, then that's what you need. Look at how users react to your optimization as well. Just because whatever tool told you to remove all the content from the page because that will speed up your site, maybe your users will not appreciate that. It might happen that they are not going to find what they are looking for. So take things with a grain of salt, implement the things that make sense for your users. And then structure data. We'll have to go back to the podium. Structure data. Check for new updates. Go to schema.org every now and then, or send your developer there, and check what's new there, and implement them if they make sense. We use structured data for a variety of things. Some of them have an effect on the search result page, like for example, you will get some nice whatever things under your recipes. But some of them, actually the rest of them, we use to understand the page better. All structured data that you put on the page will be used to understand the page better. But use the structured data reasonably. If you have some recipes and you do recipe markup on your pages, and that's all you have, just a recipe, Don't put something that doesn't, like book review or something like that, unless you have book reviews on that page. And then check validity. A note on structured data. So we work with many big companies. We have a partnerships team that tries to convince people to do X. This site, Rakuten, is not one of them. They are one of the biggest sites in Japan. They have over 70 properties, 15 million users monthly, and they've been on the market for a very, very long time. At one point, they decided that they should start experimenting with structured data. And on their recipe property, they put up structured data for recipes. And by now, we started showing their recipes in the search results as well. And this is what happened. They got 2.7 times more traffic from search, and the session duration increased by 1.5 times. Now, I'm not saying that this will happen to your site as well if you implement structured data or the right structured data, but it has the potential. So if you don't know what to do with your time, if you already went mobile friendly with your site, sped up your site, maybe consider implementing some structured data that makes sense to the pages. Next. Interesting, I don't have water. What's up with that? Weird. Where's Mark? Where's my coffee, Mark? Both. Thank you. The complicated JavaScript sites. So the web has to evolve, right? The web cannot stop evolving, because then we are going to be very sad, I guess. I don't know. It just has to. So people came up with, well, developers came up with these really nice frameworks and really nice ways to style sites with JavaScript, and to do accordions and do fancy things and explosions and blinking text. But in many cases, JavaScript is quite hard on search engines. Well, before we jump in, let's do how search works. Who knows how search works? No one knows. Barry doesn't know how search works. That's a shocker. I thought you know everything. Anyway, internally we split up search in 3 sections. One is crawling, one is indexing, one is ranking and serving. Crawling means that Googlebot goes on the internet and grabs pages and follows links and blah, 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 and sends the contents that it found to indexing. Indexing will try to make sense of pages, will try to understand what's in the page, extract images, so on and so on, and then create a posting list, basically something that tells us which page has which words. And then that's sent to ranking and serving. And then ranking and serving retrieves and ranks results as needed for user queries. During indexing, we had to, a few years ago, we had to introduce one more step, which was rendering. Rendering means that we pass on the contents of the page, including the JavaScript references and whatnot, to a rendering engine, which is currently Chrome 41. For now, we are working on upgrading that, but for now it's 41. And that headless Chrome engine will pass back pretty much the same thing that you would see in your browser when you visit the page. Now the problem is, well, one problem is that this Chrome version is rather old. I think it's 2 years old now. And it doesn't have ES6 support. Who knows what is ES6 support? You do? Do you want to explain? Because I have no idea. They just told me to put it in. Oh, thank you. I was kidding. I have no idea. How about that?
We only got these cheap pointy cups,
Well,
so there we go.
Yeah. Thank you.
As always,
Thank you.
every year.
Someone I can rely on. It doesn't have access to most APIs. Like for example, for Googlebot, it doesn't make sense to have access to the payments API of the rendering engine because Googlebot is not going to buy a shoe, for example, right? Geolocation also doesn't have access to that. Storage APIs doesn't have access to that. So if you are relying like specific APIs to render pages or to show the content to users, then with search you are going to have a problem. That was hot. Fast pages render better. Oh, that was really hot. If the JavaScript is fast, then the rendering engine will have less hard time rendering, essentially. That means for you that your content will end up in search much faster, which gives you the opportunity to rank sooner for things that you wrote about. All right, I would recommend not taking a picture of this. Basically, what I'm trying to here say is that rendering can be slow. We render by now, I think 99 or over 99% of the pages that we crawl. But there are bottlenecks, and sometimes it takes even weeks to render a page. Basically, it ends up in a queue, and then it's waiting for its turn. And sometimes its turn not coming until like for 2 weeks. You can help that. I will talk about that in just a bit. But if you have static HTML, obviously that will be the fastest way to get content into search. I don't want everyone now to go back to static HTML. That would be quite stupid. But for example, canonical is picked up from static HTML. So basically before rendering. We might change that in the future, but for now, and for the next few months at least, canonical will come from the static version of the page, not from the rendered one. May take days to render. That's exactly what I just said. Following links is slower. If you inject links with JavaScript, even if they are href links, href, it will be slower. Exactly because rendering can be slow, and then we are going to see the links slower. So as much as possible, you want to stay clear of JavaScript where it's not needed. But you can do dynamic rendering, which at one point I think we called pre-rendering. I don't think it's different from that. It's just someone had to come up with a new name for whatever reason. Basically for the users, you serve the JavaScript side. For Bing and Yandex and whatever other search engine you focus on. But this is not always needed, especially for Google. You can go to Search Console, try out a few pages with Fetch and Render, and see how the pages look like. If the pages are missing critical content that you want to rank for, then you are probably going to need to figure out how to do the dynamic rendering. Now, one thing I could do is to just leave you and basically just figure out yourself what dynamic rendering is. But, no, that's not what I wanted. But one of my new teammates, together with John Miller, put together this dynamic rendering docs, for which they are getting pretty good feedback. I've never read it, to be honest, but apparently it's good. So maybe you want to check that out if you have to go down the dynamic rendering / pre-rendering way. Pictures? No picture? Is that okay? Mobile first indexing. I will speed through this because I want more time for Q&A. Who heard about mobile first indexing? Like 3 people in the room. That's amazing. So historically, Google was indexing the desktop version of the content, but since a few years ago, most of our users, most of the searchers are on a mobile device. They are searching from a mobile device. But for them, if we continue to use the desktop content, that might mean that when they click through in the search result, or from the search results, they might end up on a page that doesn't even have the content that they were looking for. And for that reason, we decided to switch over our index to be a mobile, or to be based on the mobile versions of the pages that we index. We already moved tons of sites. Those sites that we've moved got this weird message that I don't necessarily understand. Well, that's a silly point. More sites to be moved. Well, duh. That was useful. Well, yeah, we are going to move more sites. Until now, we were moving sites that were generally mobile friendly. You know that for the past 7 or 8 years, we were chanting about how you should go mobile friendly with your sites, right? No? No? Barry doesn't know about this. Okay. Well, we were. Is there anyone in the room who doesn't have their client site or their site mobile friendly? There was a hand back there. I saw you. I want the face. It's hiding. Okay. Until now, we were moving only mobile-friendly sites to the mobile-first index, but that's going to change. And slowly, we are going to start moving sites that are not mobile-friendly. For that, that probably won't change too much for you if you're not already mobile-friendly. I will keep calling you out, though. Basically, you are going to rank lower in mobile search results. But that's not new. That's how it's been for 3 years, I think. So what does it mean to be mobile first indexing ready? For those sites that were moved, that meant that the content in general, including video and images, was largely the same on the mobile and the desktop version of the site. If you, I would just go on. The metadata, structured data, they both were the same. Internal links, they were largely the same. We don't count every single link. We count the critical ones. You can figure out which ones are the critical because you probably link them from pages that, or you put them on pages that receive a ton of traffic. The biggest problem nowadays is sites not having enough crawl capacity for Googlebot smartphone. And that would be great if you could chat with your server managers, your server admins. Basically, if there's a bottleneck put in place, a firewall rule or something that limits Googlebot smartphone's access to the server, that's going to be tough on your site. Because we are going to switch you over to mobile first indexing, but we are not going to be able to crawl as much as with desktop. And so we will discover your content slower. Preemptive Q&A, just so you don't ask me during the Q&A these questions. Responsive site or dynamic rendering or separate mobile site, which one? We don't care. Same thing with subdomains and subdirectories, whichever you prefer, we really don't care. What makes sense for your users? We do strongly recommend responsive because it makes more sense on the long run. You have to manage, oh, this is this. You have to manage only one version of your site, only one version of the content, less hassle down the road. Obviously, there are some sites that cannot do that. Like, for example, I will not ask Facebook to move away from mdot. In mobile-first indexing, we are not going to use the desktop version of the site. We are going to use the mobile version, unless the desktop version is the only version. But then we're going to rank lower. And you were ranking lower for the past 3 years. Hamburger Menu. This was some chatter on Twitter a while ago, whether hamburger menus are fine or not. Well, they are awesome because they are hamburger. Also, we don't care. Fold-out content. This is like accordions and stuff like that, I guess. It's fine. The content that's hidden behind an accordion will get the full weight in ranking. It's not going to change anything except you get back a shitload of real estate on the page if you're using accordions. Oh! That's great. Please tell me you have questions. Please tell me you have questions, otherwise Joe will ask me Edward's questions.
Joe will not ask our questions, but I'm thinking about, you mentioned rendering.
Yeah.
Do we have to worry about when the rendering switches to mobile rendering, where potentially the rendering engine shows a lot less content?
I would say that you specifically, yes, but the rest of the room, no. Basically, we are still going to understand the page similarly. I don't think it's going to change pretty much anything. Mainly because we are already using, or we are already going to use the mobile content for ranking purposes.
Okay, two quick things. One is,
not Barry. Oh, God.
I'm trying to help clarify things so people don't, one is, when you started mobile first indexing, I believe desktop only sites were also moved over because there was no mobile version. It was easy to do the mobile first indexing on them because there's no problem with equality between mobile and desktop.